Okay, so what you guys have in front of you is your greatest common factor assignment. It's called 10.1a. This right here is your notes and homework, okay? So this is going to be due on Monday. This is going to be due on Monday. Most of you will probably be able to finish it in class. If you use your class time wisely, you can get this done because it's not that difficult. All right, but not due Monday. I'm sorry, we don't have school Monday. Let's try that again. How about it's due Tuesday? Because that's the next time I see you guys. But again, if you work in class, you're going to be able to get your homework done without any assistance. So we're talking about greatest common factor, which is something that you guys learned about in Algebra 1. I'm sorry, in elementary school, actually. So it's not something that should be new to you guys, but we need to understand this before we can understand what we're going to be moving on to next. So the first question is, well, what exactly is greatest common factor? So just kind of looking at the words, the word greatest means the biggest. Okay, the word greatest means the biggest. Factor is common is the word shared. And then a factor is a number that divides evenly, which means when I divide it, I don't get any decimals. So factor is a number that divides evenly into another number. Okay, so the greatest common factor is the biggest shared number that divides evenly into another number. And we're going to look at some ways to do this. There's two different ways we can do these problems. The first way we can do these problems is we can do them listing out all factors. And I'm going to help you with that. And then the second, and again, I'm going to show you how to do all this. The second way you can do this is you can do this by prime factoring. Okay, so I'm going to show you both ways to do these problems. I'm going to do several, and then you will have, again, the rest of class today to work on this. You also have a quizzes that you have to do, so make sure that you take care of that, okay? All right, so we're going to start with problem 2 because I actually like problem 2 better than problem 1. And we're going to start with problem 2, and we're going to do problem 2 by listing all of my factors. So what I'm doing when I'm listing all of my factors is I'm trying to figure out all the things that multiply to give me 35. Like, what numbers can I multiply to give me 35? And your first thought was probably, oh, well, 35 is 5 times 7. Great. Don't ever forget that there is also always 1 times that number. So 1 times 35 is also, those are your factors. So the reason these are factors is because I can divide 35 by 5. I can divide 35 by 7. I can divide 35 by 1. I can divide 35 by 5. So I can divide 35 by all of these numbers. Okay. Well, then let's look at 10. Okay. So we're thinking about the number 10. Well, what are the things that multiply to give me 10? Well, think about it for a second. The first one that should pop in your mind is probably 2 and 5. And then there's also 1 and 10. Again, don't forget that 1. So the question you're looking for is, what do they have in common? What shows up in both of these lists? Well, if I look at both of these lists, just all these numbers, they both have a 5 and both lists have a 1. But remember, I am looking for the greatest or the biggest common factor. So of these numbers that showed up in both of them, which one's the biggest, 1 or 5? Well, it's the 5. So my answer to this question is 5. 5 is the greatest common factor. It's the biggest number that divides evenly into both of these numbers. So we just answered question number 2. We just found our greatest common factor. So look at problem number 1. I have 27 and 99. Well, let's start with 27. We're okay. We can figure that out. So I need to list out all the things that multiply to give me 27. Well, that would be 3 and 9. And then always don't forget your 1 and that number. So 1 and 27. And I'm going to do the exact same thing for 99. Now, 99, I know you're thinking, man, that's a lot harder. Like, I'm not sure about 99. I'm not sure the things that multiply to give me 99. So I'm going to show you how to do this in the, okay. Hi. Good to see you guys today. So what I'm going to do is I need you to grab a calculator. So see, I have my calculator right here. And I want you to hit y equals. So y equals is right here in the top corner. Remember our number, and this is going to look backwards. I'm sorry, just because like I'm doing this a little bit, like it's just literally looking at my screen. So the number we were looking at is we were trying to figure out what are my factors of 99. So up here in this first line, what I'm going to type in is 99 divided by, so divided by right here, x. And to type x, all you have to do is click this button right here. So see how it says 99 divided by x? Well, it doesn't look like that to you. I know it looks backwards, so it really looks like x/EE, but you get the picture. And then I want you to go to your table. So table is, sorry, it's right here on this side. No, wait, there's table right here. So table is this blue button right here. So to get that, I'm going to hit second and then this blue button, or this button right here where it says graph. And what I am looking at is I am looking at all of my sets of whole numbers, okay? I am looking at all of my sets of whole numbers. So if I look at this list, 199, that's my first set of factors. My next one, 333, so that's my next set of factors. Okay, I'm ignoring decimals, ignoring decimals, ignoring decimals. Oop, there's another set, 9 and 11. So that's my third set of factors. And if I keep going, my next one's 11 and 9. But notice this set, 11 and 9 is the same numbers as 9 and 11. That means I'm done. Okay, so we're going to go to y equals. I'm going to write this down for you on the screen when I go back to the screen. But we're going to go back to the notes. Okay, so I'm back in the notes. And let me hide this because you don't need to see me anymore. Okay, so again, my first set of factors, just thinking about all those numbers that we came up with. The first one we saw, and all I did was I typed in, just so you know, I typed in y. In y1, I did 99 divided by x, and I looked for all my whole numbers. So my first set was 1 and 99. My second set was 3 and 33, and my second set was 9 and, or my third set was 9 and 11. Okay, so now that I have all my factors listed, I am going to look for what they have in common. What are they sharing? What shows up in both of them? Well, they both have a 3. They both have a 9, and they both have a 1. So those are the things that show up in both lists. Of those numbers, which one is the biggest? 1, 3, or 9? Well, hopefully you know that 9 is. So guess what? 9 is our GCF. So that's how we find GCF. And that's really, to me, the easiest way to do this. Now, I'm going to show you another way to do this, and I'm going to do this with a different problem. I'm going to do this with problem number 5. Okay. Oops. No, I'm not going to do this with 5. I'm sorry. I'm going to do this with problem number 4. I'm going to do this with problem number 4. So problem number 4, and I'm going to do problem number 4 two ways. Okay. So I'm going to do it the way that we've done every other problem. So I'm going to go through, we're going to take 80 and we're going to list its factors. Remember, if you don't know what they are, go to y equals and do 80 divided by x and list out your whole numbers. Okay. Only your whole numbers. So if you do that, y equals 80 divided by x, your first one's going to say 1 times 80. Always start with 1. Then you're going to see 2 times 40. Then you're going to see 4 times 20. And then 5 times 16. And then 8 times 10. And the next set you're going to see, by the way, is 10 times 8. But 10 times 8 and 8 times 10 is the same, so you don't need that set. Okay? All right, then we're going to do the same thing for 10. Well, 10's pretty easy, but if you're not sure, go to y equals and do 10 divided by x and list your whole numbers. My whole numbers there are 1 and 10 and 2 and 5. Okay, so what I'm looking for is I'm looking for what these have in common. What shows up in both lists? So I see a 1 in both lists. I see a 2 in both lists. I see a 4. Oh, no, I don't see a 4. Sorry, that was my bad. There was a 1, a 2. There was a 5 in both lists. And there was a 10 in both of my lists. So if I'm looking at that, which of those numbers is the biggest? Well, 10 is the biggest, so 10 has to be my GCF. Okay, I'm going to do this problem a completely different way now. Okay, so I'm going to erase everything that I have here, and I'm going to do this problem in like a whole new way, because I want you to see that there is another way to do this. And I'm going to tell you, I don't necessarily like this way better, okay? I don't really like this way better, but some of you are going to, so that's why I'm going to show you. It's doing just some similar math, but it's doing it a little bit differently. So doing the second way, I'm going to have to prime factor each of my numbers. So prime factor means I need to just like divide it out. So this is like called a factor tree a lot of times. So like thinking about the number 10, well, I need two things that multiply to give me 10, and that is 2 and 5. I can't factor 2, so I'm going to leave this as 10 equals 2 times 5. 80 is going to make a little more sense because you're going to see 80 and you're like, oh, I know what you're doing now. Okay, so 80. If I were to prime factor 80, well, think about something 80 is divisible by. Well, 80 is 2 times 40. Can't really factor 2, but I can factor 40. 40 is 5 times 8. I can't factor 5, but I can factor 8. 8 is 2 times 4. Can't factor 2, but I can factor 4. 4 is 2 times 2. And I'm looking at all of my end numbers. I'm going to circle them all so we know what we're looking at. And I'm going to write out what 80 is. 80 is, I had a 2, a 5, and then 3 more 2s. I want you to look at these two lists, and I want you to see, again, what they have in common. What shows up in both of these lists? Well, both of these lists have a 2, and both of these have a 5. So that means my greatest common factor is 2 times 5. And 2 times 5 is 10. So 10, see, same thing. 10 is my GCF. Again, this to me is a little bit harder because this is my prime factoring. And I think prime factorization is a little bit more difficult. But some of you are going to be like, oh, that makes complete sense to me. Great. Okay, if it makes sense to you, then do that. If it doesn't, then go back to the other way because the other way works every time too. Okay? All right. I'm going to do one more with you. I'm going to do question number 8 with you. Okay, I'm going to do question number 8 with you. So we're going to start off with 72, and I'm going to do this one using y equals. So y equals 72 divided by x. So if you haven't typed that in yet, go ahead and do that. I'm actually doing that right now. I'm typing in 72 divided by x. I'm going to go look at my table and always start with 1. We're just listing out all of our numbers. 1 and 72. 2 and 36. Again, all of my whole numbers. 3 and 24. 4 and 18. 6 and 12. 8 and 9. And then the next set that shows up is 9 and 8. We'll already have that one, so I'm not going to do that twice. So I'm going to do the same thing for 24. So y equals 24 divided by x. And I'm going to go look at my table. And I'm going to list out all my whole numbers. 1 and 24. 2 and 12. 3 and 8. 4 and 6. And then my next set is 6 and 4, which is the same thing. And again, I'm looking for what they have in common. What shows up in both of them. So let's see. They both have a 1. They both have a 2. They both have a 3. They both have a 4. They both have a 6. They both have an 8. They both have a 12. They both have a 24. So they had a lot of things in common. But looking at all these things they had in common, which number was the biggest? Be 24. So 24 is my greatest common factor. Okay, so keep in mind, you need to finish this assignment. This is your homework. This is your notes. It's all of it. Okay, all of it together. It is due on Tuesday. Okay, you can, like I said, you can finish this in class. It is 100% possible for you to finish this in class. Oh, let me do one more. I lied. I'm sorry. Well, let's do 18 because 18 is different. 18 has 3 numbers. I lied. I'm sorry. I didn't lie on purpose though. Okay, I forgot that we had 3 numbers on the back. We're going to do the same thing, except we're going to do it 3 times. Y equals 14 divided by x. Okay, so I'm going to go to y equals and do 14 divided by x. and I'm looking for all of my sets of whole numbers. Well, the first one is 1 and 14. The second one is 2 and 7. That's it. Okay, then I'm going to do the same thing for 35. So we're going to go to 35 and do y equals 35 divided by x. And 35 divided by x is going to give me 1 and 35. My second set of whole numbers is 5 and 7. Do the same thing. So do a third time for 56. So y equals 56 divided by x. So 56 divided by x, I'm going to go look at my table. And I have several sets. I have 1 and 56. I have 2 and 28. I have 4 and 14. And I have 7 and 8. So this time, instead of just looking at 2 sets of numbers, I'm looking at 3 sets of numbers, and I'm looking for what shows up in all 3 of them. All 3 of them have a 1. All 3 of them have a 7. There is no other number that shows up in all 3 of them, so I'm looking at just those 2 numbers. Well, what's the bigger number, 1 or 7? Yeah, it's 7. So 7 is my GCF for problem 18. All right, that's all I got for you guys. Good luck.